And welcome to this episode of Press Coverage, part of Going for Two Live. I'm your host, Kyle Senra, and today's episode, our special guest, who was willing to join us, really happy for that, is Mr. Will Harris. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Will.
Hey, Kyle, thanks for having me. Really excited to be doing this with you and Going for Two Live. Love what you've been doing in the Twitter sphere and in the fantasy football world. And then, of course, what Going for Two's been doing. It's been pretty incredible to watch your group over the last couple of years. So congrats on all the growth and happy to be here.
Yeah, for sure. We're just, everything's growing at Going for Two. Last season started a bunch of live shows in season. Now a lot of those shows are now transitioning to off-season programs. So I think basically everything's premiered by this point. But yeah, we've been going strong here. And I know you yourself, Will, I believe the Jet Sweep show started last year, right?
It did. Yeah, we kicked it off in week 2 to be a season-long focus, just rapid-fire show to really, to get you dialed in for the week ahead in fantasy football. We're all super, super busy, and there's a lot that happens from Thursday to Monday night. So myself and my co-host, Josh Smokey Nelson, we just want to get everybody fired up, ready to go for the week ahead in fantasy football. So giving you a look ahead at what waivers look like, some hot topic news that you should be looking at to get you kind of prepped. And, we've built it so that it's at the halftime of every Monday Night Football. So you can tune in, because who wants to listen to whoever the commentators are on Monday Night Football? And we're going to talk some fantasy, then get you back for the second half of the game and ready to go for the week ahead in fantasy football.
Yeah, so in season, you've got Going for Two live show Monday before the games, and another great, more Canadian content. Although my co-hosts aren't Canadian, but it's more great Canadian content at halftime as well. So look, it's a ways away, but look for that in season on Monday nights. But yeah, here we are Monday night for this show again, and it's all about getting to know the people behind great fantasy content. In this case, one of the co-hosts of the Jet Sweep podcast, and I mean the Jet Sweep show. It's part of True North Fantasy Football, which I think we've all kind of, grown in the last year, at least from us. I say us as Canadians. Sorry, all Americans listening. Going to get patriotic here, but I feel like all of us Canadians this year sort of realized how big the fantasy football world is north of the border.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think certainly us connecting is part of that. And really, the Jet Sweep show, and then we're going to talk a little bit later about my company, Viridian Global, has all been born out of this Canadian fantasy football community that, Kyle, honestly, dude, I did not know existed. Like, I remember doing one of the satellites for Scott Fish like 2 years ago. And there was another Canadian that was in there. He was actually from up north too. I think he was from Sudbury. And I was like, whoa, there's another Canadian in fantasy football. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. I thought that I was kind of one of a kind, that I was unique. And what's really growing since I would say about this time last year, about March, April of 2019 is this Canadian community has came together, and I always thank Tyrell McLaughlin and Travis Seal for that, founders of the True North Fantasy Football, that they had this Twitter group going, this Twitter chat group going on that I was invited to, and then kind of from there it was downhill on roller skates, or kind of rocket ship to outer space, but. I don't know about you, Kyle, but I was under the firm belief that I was one of the only Canadians that was out there playing, high stakes fantasy football, that was creating content. And my world has been absolutely blown up because of connecting with fellow Canadians on here. And, when you look at the actual numbers of Canadians playing fantasy football, it's actually pretty big. There's about 6 million Canadians that play fantasy football. And when you've only got 30 million Canucks up here, that's a pretty good representation of the population. So it has grown for me exponentially over the last year. It's probably always been this big. I just didn't have a clue that it was as big as what it is. And hats off to Ty and Trav everybody involved in True North for really uniting this Canadian community. And it's been a pleasure to, meet individuals such as yourself and, be able to connect and grow as analysts, grow as fantasy football players, and just grow as humans, right? Like, I think about COVID, and I honestly, dude, I don't know where I would have been without connecting with everybody that's on here, because it, it grew into so much more. So the Canadian fantasy football community, it's strong. It's going to grow. It's going to continue to grow. And I'm really excited about it.
And I think about, yes, the Twitter community and all the conversations and just connecting, meeting people, and that's great. We're all about fantasy football, so it was all about joining fantasy leagues, right? And I know there's quite a few of that happened, but specifically from a Canadian perspective, there were a couple of really big leagues that really seemed like we were all connected in one go. We both participated in the Canada Cup. I believe we were both in the East Division.
We did, yeah.
I didn't make the playoffs. I don't know if you did.
No, once the East Division was also playing with people from Winnipeg and the Prairies, I just Josh, he put that together. Amazing league. I mean, to manage a season-long league with, I think it was over 40 teams. I mean, that's pretty incredible.
42, I believe.
42 teams, everybody playing for a different charity. Hats off, and then Josh would highlight a new charity and who people were playing for every week. I think that was pretty amazing. I look forward to seeing where the Canada Cup goes. I hope my team doesn't suck as bad as it did last year. That's all on me. That's nothing to do with the Canada Cup. That's nothing to do with the organizers. It was a fantastic time. And again, another one of these things that have helped connect us Canadians up here.
And you mentioned charity. I know your co-host on the Jet Show, Josh Smoke Show Nelson, he also made the Munchie Bowl, which connected a few of us. I know we were both in that. Did you win?
I won it.
Yeah, you did. And you were in the final, yeah. I was hoping I didn't bring up a bad finals loss, but yeah. So you had a great team in that. There were quite a few really good teams. I had a good team until Dak Prescott went down. So
that's tough, man.
But then
so did the Cowboys too, Kyle.
That's true. So God, I feel like the Cowboys. That's not good. But you also, I believe you helped co-found the Canadian Best Ball League Championship, which that really connected a lot of people as well. Another charity aspect to football, which I think a lot of leagues both north and south of the border really pushed, especially last year, but really the last few years. The charity aspect of fantasy football has really been growing.
Yeah, which is fantastic. And, hats off a lot to Scott Fish, who is, the Scott Fish Bowl is kind of the pinnacle of charity fantasy football leagues and really fantasy football league play in the world, right? And I think that we're all inspired by that. The Canadian National Best Ball Champions League was, honestly, it was just one day I was sitting at home and I was like, we've got all these dynasty startups going. We've got all these like season long, which is going to be a ton of fun. But I'm like, man, I got a kid at home. I got a full-time job. I got all this writing I've got to do. I'm like, I love drafting. I love best ball. So why don't we put together a best ball league to play in? And it just went off like wildfire. One division filled up. We had it themed this year to be Tragically Trailer Park, two kind of iconic brands in Canada, the Tragically Hip, which is a rock band, humongous in Canada. Most Americans have never heard of them. And then the Trailer Park Boys. It's funny that the Trailer Park Boys are probably more recognizable to Americans than what the Tragically Hip is, because Tragically Hip, every single Canadian knows what Tragically Hip is, but I wouldn't say the same about Trailer Park Boys. So it's kind of funny how the Trailer Park Boys have kind of has that international notoriety, where the Tragically Hip are actually more well-known in Canada than what the Trailer Park Boys are.
I think when the Trailer Park Boys started, I had no idea they were Canadian. There's no way these guys could be Canadian. They're way too wild and crazy. But yeah, they are.
Yeah, it pushed a lot of boundaries, certainly. And so it was themed like that. And people just kept reaching out to me saying, hey, we want to get involved. We want to be a part of it. And it quickly scaled up to 3 conferences. And I just kind of had to say, hey, there's a lot of other stuff on the go. We'll get you on a waiting list for next year. We had tremendous support from Trav and Ty at True North Fantasy Football. The whole Canadian community kind of rallied behind the league. And then Monkey Knife Fight too. They were our title sponsor. They're our trophy sponsor. They got behind us in a really big way. We're really excited about what we're doing. Nick Salsky was an advocate kind of from day one. Monkey Knife Fight, if you haven't checked it out, they're doing fantastic stuff. Honestly, I always say it's the most fun that you can legally have on the internet. It makes every single NFL or any single sporting event really, really fun to get in on the action. But yeah, the Canadian National Best Ball Champions League, a lot of fun. Each team was playing for a charity, which was super cool. So, you got to see charities from all over Canada. And then the crowning champion got half of the total kind of entry fees went to that winner's charity. The rest will go to KMH, which is for addiction and mental health research. But the winning charity and the winner, Grady Sass, who took it home with pretty much Justin Herbert and Travis Kelce on his team, which, kudos to him. That was a hell of a drafting strategy. But his charity, Hockey for Youth, is, I think it was kind of fitting that our inaugural kind of winners charity was so iconic. It's about, it's about multiculturalism. It's about giving back to kids that are new to this country, teaching them how to play hockey. So we were really happy to make the donation. Still have to make the donation. I got to link up with the dude. He's been super hard to track down, but super fitting. And hopefully we've developed some relationships that we can take forward for years to come, because, Hockey for Youth, hockey is, a lot of people probably don't realize that haven't played the game, but it's super expensive. It's not a game that you can just all of a sudden start to play, right? And, if you're new to this country, hockey is, for better or for worse, it is in the fabric of Canadian society. And this Hockey for Youth gives these youth a chance to actually play hockey, learn the game, and, help developing relationships in a new city. So we're really happy to be able to give to that charity. And hats off again to Grady Sass for taking home the first ever Canadian National Best Ball Champions League. You can actually see the trophy over my shoulder here. It rests safely in my house here in Toronto. But yeah, and anybody that's listening that wants to get involved, just feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah, and for anyone looking, it's Harris time, which I'm sure that was but yeah. Okay, well, I'll stop singing. But Going for Two, as much as the new podcasts, Going for Two also has some new merch, and all of that comes from a company called Viridian Global. So, Will, why don't you tell us about Viridian Global?
Certainly, that's a really natural.
Nice hat, by the way.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really, really natural segue there, Kyle. And we're super excited, working with Jeff and working with Going for Two. I'm really excited to have the brand's merch there. I mean, Viridian, one portion of our business is the football collective, and that's really about bringing brands to life and getting podcasts, websites, everything fantasy football related, getting merch out there so that, fans can rock fantastic gear that's high quality. But on the flip side of that as well, help raise some money, man. Help raise some money for these brands. Because guess what? Like, unless your site's paywalled or your Patreon's rocking and rolling, live streams cost money. Podcasts cost money. Writers can cost money. So, our Viridian Collective side of the business is helping brands not only get their merch out there, get their brand out there, getting it in the hands of their fans, but also helps them raise money. That's really, really cool. And when myself and my partner, Mark Mathick, Master June 70 on the Twitter sphere, you've probably seen some of his epic threads and just some of his amazing designs that's out there. When we started Viridian Global and when we started the Football Collective, it was, okay, we're doing this. We want brands to be able to make money and be able to have high quality merchandise that they don't have to worry about. And, that's one portion of our business. And all of this, man, it's so crazy. All of this has been born out of COVID. All of this has been born out of these Twitter groups, these Canadian Twitter groups that have spawned such great things like Canada Cup and the Canadian National Basketball Champions League. And then my passion, Viridian Global. So that's a little bit about the company. And, one portion of our business is the collective, which Going for Two is part of. But the other part is, making kick-ass player designs, making kick-ass league and championship shirts. And, from the beginning, Mark and I's goal was to, give back to the community. And the second one was just to have the best designs on the best clothing that we could possibly afford to get out there to the masses. And you know what? We kind of kicked things off in September on the merch side of the business, and it's been a lot of learning experience, but there's nothing quite like when somebody from Going for Two gets their first hat ever, or gets their first t-shirt ever. You just, having that brand and having it on a t-shirt or a hat or a hoodie, just to wear it with pride. Or if you're a fan to, somebody, a podcast or a fantasy football site that you've been following that is helping you win championships, to be able to give back to them and then be proud and wear that across your chest or across your hat, man, that's such a special feeling.
And yeah, you guys definitely, you're clothing people. Like that's literally bringing clothes sometimes to children. So what more can you ask for in terms of good feeling for all that hard work? Because I'm sure you and Mark are working tirelessly to create everything Viridian and to get that off the ground. And now we're almost, you said started September, so we're 6 months in, and I'm sure you guys are still working just as hard.
Oh yeah, man. It doesn't stop. It's a passion, you love it. It drives you. And that's what keeps you going. Mark and I both absolutely love what we're doing. We love working with the brands that we do. And, we all have full-time jobs, full-time lives, and little kids running around. So kind of from, I always like to say that my second job, my Viridian job, kind of starts at 9 a.m. and, sometimes it goes until 8 a.m. kind of deal. And we do it because we love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what were your biggest influences? And when I asked that, I'm asked as a guest, no one really kind of asked back exactly what I meant. So you were wondering if I meant personal, professional, or, fantasy football. And I was like, why not all three? So the floor is yours, Will. What has influenced you to get to this point?
Yeah, Kyle, I had to rack my brain, and that's why I reached out and kind of asked for a clarifying question, because I had to think about it, and I kind of thought about it from all kind of three spheres. And there's always been people or resources that have motivated me, that have helped inspire me. But I thought about it, and what it really comes down to is people that are driven, that have a goal, and they have no expectations of other people. I think a lot of times, and you see this in fantasy football Twitter world, certainly quite a bit. You also see it in the professional world. You see it in sports. You see it in literature. You see it all over the place. And people that give without any expectations have always been people that I have gravitated towards and have wanted to emulate. Hey, you're doing this because you love it and you don't have any expectations. You don't expect anything back. And that, it took me a while to understand that. And when you asked that question, I had to think long and hard about, people that I gravitate towards. And that's really, these are people that are driven by passion, that do it because they love it and they want to do it. There's no expectations back. And for me, that's what drives me. I'm doing this because I love it, and I don't expect you to give anything back to me. I'm doing it because I want to help you, and I love what I'm doing. And I really feel that in fantasy football, that's why we have to do it.
Awesome. That's and again, that we were talking about all the charity leagues, all the anything we can to give back and to help others, but it doesn't even have to be financial. Giving your time, just being there to talk sometimes is what people need. I'm glad we're talking. Like, that's good too. This wasn't so much need as want. I mean, maybe our listeners need it absolutely, but I think this is more just a fun time for us. And of course, Jeff likes filling the network with programs. So again, thanks for that. Thanks for giving your time.
Of course.
So, what would you give as advice to someone just starting out? And this could be content creation. This could be starting out creating a company like you have with Viridian. So what would you, that inertia, right? That's always the most difficult thing, it seems. So what would you do to help someone out in terms of advice?
Yeah, certainly, Kyle. And I think that it goes a lot hand in hand with what I just said. But the first start of anything is starting. So much of everything that we do, we get caught up, paralysis by analysis. We over plan when really the best action that you can do and the best time is always right now. Go out and do it. In the industry that I'm into, video is huge in fantasy football. The industry that I'm in, video is also really, really big. And, there's a lot of people that, have webinars and, different software and things you can do to help perfect video. But if you're not out there creating content, you're not out there creating video, you're not out there trying it out, you're just sitting there and you're losing time. And really, you've got to go out there, start doing it. It sounds so simple, but the first start is going out there and doing it. That being said, it does help when you have a plan and you have a goal in mind. And while you're going out there and executing your plan, stay true to yourself. And that goes back to what I was talking about people that motivated me and what drives me and what inspires me are those people that have stayed true to themselves, stay true to their vision without sacrificing themselves, like who they are as people. They're sacrificing, yes, of course, they're sacrificing their time. They're probably sacrificing relationships and a whole host of other things, but they're not sacrificing who they are. And I think for people that are starting out, stay true to your vision, stay true to who you are, and don't let the buzzards, don't let the people out there that are saying that you're wrong kind of weigh you down. Take criticism, listen, and evolve and learn. I think that's it. And people, I think in this industry as well, we're much more accessible than what people think. If you're just starting out, reach out to some analysts that you respect and know. I certainly did. And a lot of them put up their hand and said, yeah, if you want to send me over your articles, I'll give them a look. I'll listen to your podcast and take that criticism and take it and do something about it, because they know what they're doing. They've been doing it for a long time. So don't be afraid to reach out, because you'll be surprised how many people answer.
That's true. Yeah, I think the positivity within the fantasy football community is certainly a big topic that I feel like I've kind of mentioned on every episode here. But if they think about previous guests, I Peter Howard, who was on a couple episodes ago, I think about just his whole idea of doing all this data and spreadsheets for free and that everyone can have. And he's also a super accessible guy. His DMs are open. You just message him. And he was talking about how he was having a not so great day. And then someone reached out to ask for help on a formula. And like to him, that like brightened his day up completely. So sometimes, don't feel as though you're inconveniencing people. In some cases, they actually enjoy that idea of someone actually reached out to me to ask for help and giving help. I think we are very giving people in the fantasy community.
Yeah, I saw that from Peter today. Actually, that made me smile. He's brilliant guy, and again, he's always there to reach out to and to help out. These guys and gals that are out there, they were once in everybody's shoes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think back to just you're talking about, just get started, but then you also mentioned you should have a plan and should have goal in mind. I also think goal, maybe a little, the ultimate goal, maybe that's a little intimidating. Long-term goal and short-term goals are also things to be aware of. Maybe that those short-term goals kind of help chain you to that long-term goal is kind of one bit of advice I would kind of just branch on to what you said.
For sure. I think that you're absolutely right. I think that having a kind of a BHAG, as they call it in the sales world, big, hairy, audacious goal is something that everybody should have, but also have these nice milestones that you can check off along the way while you're getting there. Because if you don't, some days can be a big drag, man.
And I mean, if days are a big drag, you always have your favorite hobbies to fall back on for that positivity. So, Will, what are some of your favorite hobbies outside, of course, of fantasy football? Because I think that's like kind of a given for everyone on this show.
Fantasy football and Viridian certainly take up a lot of my time, but outside of that, it's spending time with my 3-year-old daughter, man. I mean, every second that I can spend with her, whether we're, playing Play-Doh or racing cars or out at the park. I mean, that's number one with me. And back in the day when I had free time, I love running and cycling, playing hockey. Maybe someday I'll get back there. But right now it's my daughter and fantasy football and Viridian. That's about all we got. But big cyclist, big runner as well.
You strike me as a really solid defensive player. I think we get along well for hockey. Or are you the wheel snipe Selly type guy?
So I was like I guess I was a very diverse type of player, a little bit of a shit disturber, but I really excelled playing kind of the anchor in center. I was super fast, could win a lot of draws, could get under the opposing team's skin, and pretty much had cement hands, but was really fast and made it entertaining all the time. But yeah, defensive center with wheels, I guess, is probably the best way that you could kind of describe me. But I started my hockey career as a defenseman.
Okay. Yeah. Don't prop yourself up too much there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Always on the defensive side when I played, but yeah. Okay, well, I was going to ask one thing no one knew about you. I don't know if anyone knew the hockey side of you. So aside from that, what's something else you'd like to share with the fantasy community?
Yeah, one thing that probably nobody knows and not a lot of people in my personal life knows is I was very close to becoming a police officer when I was in my mid-20s. Like, it was really, really close. I actually worked for our province's provincial police force for a summer doing marine enforcement, and life just kind of happened, took me down a different path. And, you look back sometimes and you said, well, my life could be a lot different than what it is now, but I don't regret a thing.
I mean, you might have a different wife, right? You wouldn't want that, would you?
Well, no, of course not. Of course, I'd probably have somebody from Northern Ontario for all intents and purposes if I had went down that path and joined our provincial police force or something like that. So that's one that I don't think nobody in True North even, True North would even know that I was pretty close to becoming a police officer back in the day.
Good old OPP. Marine enforcement in Northern Ontario, there's a lot of lakes.
Yeah. It was a fun summer.
Yeah, I'm sure all over the province, and it's a big part of the province. So yeah, that's good. Now, what's one revelation you wish you had gotten earlier in life? That's a question that we've kind of had to adapt because I used to ask that in a different way, and it just sort of confused the heck out of people. I think this is a simpler way.
Yeah, well, I think that there's a lot, but I also look at it as everything is a learning experience. You're always kind of evolving. You never know it all. I think that and I've thought about this since you asked the question and looking over the show sheet, and I just really feel that the one lesson that I wish I had learned a lot earlier in life is that nobody will hand you anything. Nobody, for all intents and purposes outside of your very close family, your friends, really care. You have to do what you want because you're the only person that can make that happen. And man, I think about all of the lessons that I could have potentially learned earlier in life. And trust me, Kyle, there is a shit ton. There's a lot of lessons that I learned in Sudbury, for example, that I wish I learned like 15 years before. But those are stories, and they've all made me into the person that I am today. But the one thing is just, hey, if you don't expect anything from anybody. If you want something, you've got to go out there, make a plan, do it. And if you fail at doing it, hey, that's okay. That's actually to be expected. And just to pick yourself off, dust yourself off, and get right back at it if you really want something.
Everything's a learning experience, and as much as we learn through our successes, we probably learn much more in our lack of success, or I don't want to say failure, because it's making mistakes and errors doesn't failure seems very finite, like you're done, right? But mistakes can eventually lead to success.
Yeah, you're always growing, right? And I think about those life lessons. They also apply to fantasy football. Like you learn these lessons yourself the hard way, even though your favorite analysts have told you to do X, Y, and Z for success, and you decide to do it your own way, or the other way, you've done what your favorite analyst has said and it fails. You learn, you adapt, you get better. And, as a fantasy football player, I like to kind of take those life lessons and apply it to fantasy as well.
I remember my first dynasty startup, like pure dynasty. It started with contract and salary first. So they made that redraft to that to then, but normal dynasty, it was kind of a weird progression. And, it wasn't that long ago. And I basically remember that startup, and I know there's some mistakes that are just awful picks, truly awful. Sorry for that team.
Yeah. I'm fairly new to the dynasty realm, and this one haunts me. This one just absolutely haunts me. So firstly, I traded DJ Chark for Robert Foster at the tail end of that, when Robert Foster just went on an absolute tail, like highest yards per target. He looked like the clear incumbent in Buffalo. So, and then Chark was, he was an intriguing prospect, athletic, measurables through the roof. Hadn't really done much in Jacksonville to that point. So that's, that trade, it was pretty even, actually. It sounds hilarious to say that now. But that's not what I regret. What I regret is then the Chark, the Chark manager actually drops him, and I don't clear the roster spot to get him back on my team. Anyways, Chark ends up blowing up. Robert Foster, he ended up in Washington?
I think he blew up his knee.
Oh, he did?
I don't know. I believe he had an injury. That was. I shouldn't really joke about injuries like that. Sorry, Robert Foster, if you're listening. Buffalo, it's not that far from Canada, right?
No, it's literally 45 minutes from where I live. So, I just wanted to share with the people that that was a learning experience, and you just move forward, right?
I believe it was 2018. Maybe 2017. Maybe it was Juju as a rookie, but I definitely in the fourth round, I think, took Doug Baldwin ahead of Juju Smith-Schuster, and I think got one more season out of Baldwin. So that was not a good play for that startup. But yes, actually, Dan Turner from the podcast with Upside, just joined us in the chat. So apparently, it's a great show. I fooled Dan. No. And he also wants to troll and say that Michael Jordan is better than Wilt Chamberlain. That is purely directed at me for some, not trolling, but some comments I like to constantly berate Dan and his co-host Jay with. I think that all stems from, is Michael Jordan the GOAT or is LeBron? And I always say it's actually Wilt Chamberlain. So I don't know where you stand on that, Will.
Definitely Michael Jordan, not even close. But
okay,
I think that we might be able to argue that Wilt is the off-court GOAT, but I'm going to have to go with MJ on the court.
So I know Dan and Jay always say it's MJ as well, so that'll make Dan happy. So I'm probably happier than anything I'll say. But I guess we've talked fantasy, so let's get to it. And I would say fantasy football. Really, I'm just going to say fantasy though, because how did you get started? And I think that answer predates fantasy football, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly does. I guess it's a two-part story. Grew up playing hockey, got into fantasy hockey pretty heavy, but in my late 20s, I kind of stepped away from hockey, had a couple really bad concussions, so I stopped playing as much. But also at the same time, I just also realized that they play hockey like every single night of the week, which is absolutely insane. And I had experienced a NFL game in Toronto, actually, and that's how it sounds funny, but I actually became a Steelers fan because of that. So they hosted a bunch of games here in Toronto where the Bills were at home. The Steelers were in town. I had won some tickets to go and watch them on my birthday. Was blown away by the amount of Steelers fans that were in town. Buffalo's literally across the lake. Like, it's 45 minutes on a good day. And it was just like Steelers Central. So that kind of got me into the NFL. At the same time, you know, the game day experience that an NFL game offers versus like an NHL game, it's not even close. Like a game in Toronto is the Mecca. They call it the Mecca of hockey. Like, I'm not going to get into that debate, but they call it the Mecca of hockey. And like, if you go and watch a Toronto Maple Leafs game here, you literally want to go to sleep. It is absolutely brutal. The entertainment value is horrendous. And that's a lot to do with just like corporate sponsorship and things like that. So as I was getting older, I'm like, dude, I don't have time to like follow the Maple Leafs, and they're going to sign a bunch of expensive free agents and lose. Plus they play like 7 nights a week. I don't have time for that. Plus, like, an NFL game, like tailgating, the experience, like going down to Pittsburgh, which is only 4 hours away from where I live. It's a full weekend experience. It's like a party. The entire city shuts down. That's the kind of vibe that I like. Like, Toronto is so corporate in terms of like hockey games. It's just brutal. So as I was maturing, I guess I got into NFL football. It sounds really, really funny to say that out loud, but that's what happened. Like, dude, man, I'm a dad. Like, I can't keep up with fantasy hockey. Like, to change rosters like 7 times a week, pick up people on, dude, man, like, Sleeper gives me an absolute aneurysm with their daily waivers when it comes to football. I can barely keep up with that. So fantasy football was kind of like this natural transition for me. And there's absolutely no looking back. I can kind of set my watch to, hey, sometimes I'll be able to tune into a Thursday night game. I know for damn sure I'll be able to tune into a game on Sunday, maybe sometimes on a Monday night if I get lucky, Kyle. Who knows, man? But that's kind of my evolution as a fantasy player. So from fantasy hockey over to fantasy football. And I started, like probably a lot of us did, with a home league, standard 10-teamer. And then I just grew from there. I'm like, this is fun. Next, I got into best ball. Best ball to me is just like the ultimate way to play fantasy football. I can draft whenever I want. I don't have to maintain teams. I can stay current with ADP. I can win a lot of money as well playing best ball. And then from best ball, got into dynasty and high stakes season long. So that's a little bit about kind of how I got into fantasy football up here in Canada playing.
Yeah, fantasy hockey is the intro, it seems. Same here. I still do stuff mostly for the playoffs because, like you said, in season, cool. It gets pretty hectic. I think for all the other major sports, NBA, baseball, I couldn't even imagine.
Oh, dude. Baseball is just like blows my mind. Fantasy baseball people are like, my hat goes off to you to be able to play that competitively. Wow.
But don't take that hat off. We like the logo.
Yeah. I need a haircut, man. COVID and the haircuts, dude. Jeez Louise.
And so, Sean Sullivan actually chiming in saying King James to our earlier conversation. So apparently it's not unanimous, Michael Jordan. Also, the fantasy sports doc, Mr. James Ferretti, saying, hi, what's Kyle, up, great stuff. James, one of my co-hosts on the Monday night show. So I was really fortunate to have him join us at Going for Two. And I know he has the fantasy gambit or the dynasty gambit. Oh boy. One of our shows here on involves Gambit. That's X-Men guy. I remember that. But yeah, one of our shows here on Going for Two. So James and Hamed. So yeah, that'll be a show you should definitely check out. Podcast Upside with Dan Turner as well. So yeah, I'll check out all the great Going for Two stuff. Got to plug throughout. Also get our stuff on the Going for Two shop at Meridian Global. I don't know, just feel like saying it anyway. But yeah, so let's get into some fantasy specific questions. I think we got a good idea of the
Dynasty
man, the myth,
Gambit.
the legend.
Dynasty Gambit.
Dynasty Gambit. That's what it is. Yeah. Had the Gambit part right. So check out the Dynasty Gambit, folks. But Will, what are your thoughts on zero RB?
Horrible idea. All joking aside, I'm a robust RB guy. I mean, when you look at when I'm building a roster, I'm very value oriented. 100%. I don't have quote unquote guys that I go after. If the ADP is a value, I'm going to put that person on my team. From a best ball standpoint, having this robust kind of running back starting point just makes so much sense, because the hit rates on wide receivers can go into the 16th round in terms of wide receivers that can put up, a 40-point week. Well, those 40-point weeks mean a lot in best ball compared to, like, let's say a season long. A 40-point wide receiver could potentially be on your bench in week 8 and not be any use to you. Whereas in best ball, that 40 points at the end of the season can make a hell of a difference in the best ball format. So zero RB is really, really tough. I mean, zero RB truthers this year will say, well, we got James Robinson, we had Myles Gaskin. I don't think all the zero RB crowd were in on James Robinson and Myles Gaskin from the get-go. Some of you that were, congratulations. You hit. You did zero RB. Congratulations. But what about those of us that went robust RB and were able to pick up James Robinson, pick up Myles Gaskin on waivers, and just build to our roster, our stable of running backs? And also, we're able to hit on late round wide receivers, because this season and last season, there was a shit ton. That is a scientific term that you can take to the bank. And as these wide receivers continue to develop, and we have what seems to be another strong rookie class coming back, that to me just pushes wide receiver value further and further and further down, and makes those workhorse RBs even more valuable. But people don't seem to be gravitating towards that. They don't seem to be embracing it. But you got to look at the trends. You got to look at the hit rates of these late round wide receivers and be like, oh, maybe I should reevaluate. You should be malleable. Just because I'm a robust RB guy today doesn't mean that maybe in 2 seasons I am drafting wide receivers in the first, second, third round. You got to go where the value is. You've got to be like water, right? You got to go with the flow. So that's kind of where I'm at with our robust RB. This has just been the way to build championships for the last few seasons. It could change, man. I think that the big change this season, and we probably should have been wise to it before the season, was Travis Kelce. His positional advantage that he gives at the tight end position. Dude, he was putting up RB1 numbers from the toughest to fill position in fantasy football. Think about that. The hit rates and the win rates of Travis Kelce on your teams in 2020. I haven't done the analysis yet, but it's going to be through the roof for the teams that had Travis Kelce. So that's where I'm at our bust RB. I mean, there's a lot, zero wide receiver. We actually have a great zero wide receiver shirt at Viridian Global that you should check out as one of our many strategy shirts. But that's where I'm at, man. Just the depth at wide receiver. Good old Robbie Anderson putting up top 15 numbers, and he was going in the 12th round. He was an afterthought in drafts. There's always going to be those guys, at least for the immediate future.
So first off, we do have another Canadian joining us, someone from the TNFF network, Big Willie style, spitting flames. I assume that's Trav.
I think that's Trav. Yeah, that's Trav.
So, maybe Trav understands this. So, shit ton, that's metric, not imperial. So the Americans might not understand. So it's good that you explain that. One thing I'll say, and you made a good point that you can go robust RB and still hold true to one of the most fundamental principles of zero RB, which is the late round running back. Those guys that are an injury away, you can go heavy running back and still fill the back end of your lineup with those guys. So that's that aspect of zero RB I like, and I think could translate to any strategy that you used. Just coming up, Sean Sullivan again. He apparently likes the idea in the middle of a mock draft and drafted 3 running backs in 3 rounds.
There we go. I'll be Sean.
Yeah, so there you go. So you got Will. It's his time to give his praise out. So
yeah, I think the other thing too, the other thing too, though, Kyle, again, like being malleable and adjusting to the drafts that you're in. If somebody is going to let AJ Brown go in the 3rd round of a draft, yeah, I'm going to take that. Are you going to let Justin Jefferson slide into the 3rd round? Yes, I'm going to jump on that. So it's not necessarily, I'm not set in every draft. Yeah, I'm going to hammer out 3 RBs. I'm going to hammer out 4 RBs. In Scott Fishbowl last year, I hammered out 5 RBs in a row. Didn't work out too hot. But I go with the draft, man. Like if there's value, the value is so deep at wide receivers. Like I think about the disrespect going on right now. And, I'm involved in a lot of early best balls. And it's like, man, you're telling me that Julio Jones is going in like the 7th or 8th round? Are you like, he had an off season. He was injured. But these values can be found all over the place. Like OBJ, love him or hate him, but he's going in the 9th rounds of drafts. Like these are the kind of darts that you can throw, and you just need one of these wide receivers to hit to make it worth your while. And if one of them doesn't work out, you just move on to the next one.
Yeah, very good fundamental principles there. I like that, Will. So what is your favorite league format?
Yeah, I know that Superflex is certainly all the rage. It's fun. I like it. But for me, I love the FFPC format, the Football Guys tournament, their main event, which is start 2 wide receivers, 2 flex spots, and then tight end premium, single quarterback. That's my favorite format. I love drafting for those teams. They are also still starting defenses and kickers, so it adds another element of strategy. I like that holistic kind of play, and that to me is my favorite league format. But as long as it's not below 12 teams and isn't standard scoring, I'm a fan. A PPR, half point PPR, or super flex. I'm game for every format. To me, league format wise, best ball, like just any kind of best ball, man.
Yeah, that's true. You kind of already hit to that earlier. I guess we didn't need to answer that, but I guess you mentioned the FFPC, and we're going to go back to another Canadian, JD, at the GOAT District. I know that they're always pushing the FFPC. I know they have a partnership, obviously, so easier with the sponsorship. But this format that they, JD and Dan both really love playing on and swear by it.
Yeah, and JD, he's like an iconic Canadian. He's kind of like the godfather of all of us content creators now. He was out there doing it and was, he's the biggest name that we have here in Canada, and he's taken us all under his wing and helped us out. And one of the best podcasts, him and Dan just rock it out, and I love listening to those guys. Dan too, he's an honorary Canadian, being up in Minnesota.
Yeah, close enough.
Absolutely. They're awesome dudes. And JD and I have kicked it a couple times, socially distance visits, but another great content creator that Canada can claim for ourselves.
I know JD has been on various Going for Two shows before. A couple appearances on the Armchair Show, Jeff's flagship show for us at Going for Two. Again, plugging everything. We just have to. Now, what's one rule or setting that you feel is a must-have in every league?
Yeah, flex spots. It sounds... I am leaving... If anybody's listening from my home league, I am leaving this year because there's no flex spot. It's ridiculous. It's a start 3 wide receiver, no flex. And no matter how well you draft, it is super frustrating to not have the flexibility to put in a running back, or really a running back in a flex spot. And I operate in a league that doesn't have a flex or IR for that matter, which my league also didn't have until this year with COVID, where it was designated.
I mean, yeah, flex spot's definitely a must-have. I think I would agree with you there. I'll look at some fantasy history. What is your all-time fantasy QB1, RB1, wide receiver 1, and tight end 1?
Yeah. So this one was another one. You've asked some really good questions, Kyle. I've had to think about it. So I think we're in the era of some of the best quarterbacks that we've ever seen. I mean, the mobile quarterbacks that we have today, they're the statuesque quarterbacks that we had before that had these great arms. I mean, I think that we're in the modern era of the quarterback right now. So there's a bunch that are exhilarating to watch, to have on your fantasy football teams. I look at Lamar Jackson 2 seasons ago, and I mean, he put up just an absolute epic season. For me, though, I think that in this era, just to get that super talented and also mobile quarterback, I think that we've got to go to the maybe soon to be Texans QB in Deshaun Watson as one of my favorite fantasy football quarterbacks, and I think that he's also really exciting to think about what he can do maybe on a new team. But his consistency with those Texan teams, no matter how bad they are, has actually been pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, wondering what his fantasy totals were going to be like without DeAndre Hopkins. The offensive line's never been good, so he's always produced regardless. But yeah, it's definitely cemented himself, I think, among the top tiers, and really, I think, becoming truly a top tier real life NFL quarterback as well. I think that's really, in spite of the fact that team only won 4 games with such a great quarterback play, really tells you how bad that franchise has come.
Yeah, it is like, I think about the Texans, I think about the Jets, and I think about the Jaguars, and they're just always constantly like, hey, hold my beer while I completely fuck up my real life football team. So it'll be hopefully he gets a new home and can show what he does, because the guy loves football. He plays his heart out every single game.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, running back 1, wide receiver 1, and tight end 1. A little bit easier for you, or still challenging?
Way easier. I mean, the RB1, I think it's really, really tough to argue with LaDainian Tomlinson. I mean, they changed fantasy football rules because of him, right? Like,
that's probably why they invented PPR.
It is, right? I think that we'll be hard pressed to ever have the performances that Tomlinson did in our era. And that's super impressive that they literally changed how fantasy football was played. And you look at the longevity as well of his fantasy dominance. I don't think that anybody else will ever be able to touch that. So Tomlinson, for me, is like a super, super easy nod. And then at wide receiver, I'm going to dial it back to the Detroit Lions and Calvin Johnson. Just when he was at the top of his game, I think it was really, really tough to compete with Calvin Johnson. Again, maybe not as long as we all would have liked, but he was certainly, when he was at the top of his game, there was nobody else that could touch him in real football and in fantasy football. And for tight end, I gotta go with the guy who's changing the game on us right now, and that's Travis Kelce. We're talking about somebody that not only has longevity, he has put up tight end 1 numbers for, probably a 4 to 5 consistent seasons. And this last season, he was absolutely dominant, and he will change how teams draft this year. And to have that kind of influence on fantasy football, that makes you one of the greatest of all time at the tight end position for fantasy football. And Travis Kelce just goes out there, and he is not only fun to watch, he's involved in all elements of the game. And like I said, this season he put up, it was like starting an RB1 from your tight end spot. And the tight end spot has been just a absolute wasteland for the last 3 years, let's call it. And he's the only one. He's on a tier by himself. Hopefully George Kittle comes back healthy next season and we have a little bit of debate. But for me, the greatest tight end in fantasy football is Travis Kelce.
All right. And yeah, I think I know with Kelce, I was even in a two tight end premium dynasty league, and yeah, dynasty, so his age, but I still thought I got him at 204, and I didn't think I'd be able to get him that late. And I think that, going into the next year, like a two tight end league, there's no way he's getting out of the first round, even with a year older in that age. I think what he did and that impact, and I think we could still anticipate a few more solid years of this, at least 2 or 3.
I think so. The volume is there, right? Like the volume is there and the talent is there. He doesn't show any signs of kind of falling off. And I have been like dying to draft Travis Kelce, especially in the FFPC, but he's just, dude, man, I've drafted out of the 108 like 4 times now, and he's gone. He's like long gone by the 108 because FFPC is tight end premium. So I'm still, if he gets to that, I mean, it's going to be really, really tough to pass him up, especially in tight end premium.
I think even in non-tight end premium, I don't think I could take a wide receiver ahead of him in any format, dynasty or redraft. I think, give me Devontae Adams, give me Kelce. I'd probably take Kelce because I think I can, like you said, you were to say, 16th round in some best ball leagues for the hit rate at wide receiver. You're not really getting that at tight end, certainly not to Kelce's impact.
Not at that level, right? Like, if you're not getting Kelce or Kittle or Waller to some extent, just like punt tight end. I mean, just
the middle ground. The last few years, that middle ground, those like 6th, 7th, 8th round tight ends have all been
wasteland.
Where like even a couple years ago, Mark Andrews was well after that. You were getting him in the 10th, 11th, 12th round. I usually find where the tight ends go. Although I will say, next year might be an exception. With Andrews' disappointing season, I wonder if he falls back into that middle ground. He might be one that if he's in the 5th, 6th round, I think that's the great value there. But normally that's not a great range for tight end. It might be if there's a reduction in draft price with him. But again, if everyone's going so tight end crazy, he might still be up there where he should be drafted.
Yeah, I like the kind of the negative kind of regression narrative that people have around Baltimore right now. I mean, if we can get in on like an Andrews, like Marquise Brown and pieces of that run game at a discount, I'm all for it. I'm just seeing right now, again, FFPC is tight end premium, but the discount on Andrews right now hasn't been high enough for me. I mean, it's early days yet, but he's still going in the 4th, 5th round. Mind you, it's tight end premium. In season long, though, if he starts to slide like season long non-tight end premium, if we're talking that he's going 8th, 9th, 10th round, oh, dude, all absolute day. Like, lock him in. Because the thing about the Ravens, whether it's Andrews or Brown, the talent is there. The volume just doesn't exist, dude. Like, they're the lowest pace passing game in the NFL, or 31st, 32nd. The talent is there. When you look at like what Brown and Andrews do when they get volume or when they get a little bit of volume, it's pretty impressive. So start buying that Baltimore regression if the price is right.
All right. So now we'll get to the final segment of the show. I like to call it high fives. Yeah. Thanks. And just going through the top 5 in 5 different categories. We already referenced one of your top 5 for artists or bands, so if you do want to speak on them a little more, never a complaint there. But so top 5 artists or bands. Seems like it's mostly. Well, I guess it's a good mix. Never mind.
Yeah. So again, I kind of had to rock my brain just in terms of, hey, what if I actually have some spare time? What do I put on? What kind of music do I listen to? It's few and far between, but near and dear to a lot of Canadians' hearts, the Tragically Hip. They're out of Kingston, Ontario, which is probably a good 35 minutes from where I was born and raised. And this is just an iconic Canadian rock band. They really give it. And from the start of their career till the end, Gord Downey passed away from cancer. I don't know, I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but just iconic Canadian. And, this guy's stage presence was second to absolute absolute none. So Tragically Hip get a nod. And then, Detroit Rock City's Bob Seger. I love Bob Seger, man. Just he's still giving her after all these years. And I absolutely respect that. I wish I could afford a ticket to one of his shows. Kyle, can you believe that he charges like $300 for a single ticket to watch him at the Air Canada Centre or whatever they call it now in Toronto? That's insane. But I love the Siegs, the Silver Bullet Band. I love Bob Seger, another classic rock band. The Eagles, really tough to mess with. And then an artist that I absolutely love and that's timeless, Elton John, just so extremely talented, is both in terms of his singing ability, what he's been able to do on the piano, and just the longevity of his career. I really respect that. I don't know if you got a chance to watch Rocket Man, the biography. Pretty phenomenal to see a little bit of glimpse of Elton John the man. So somebody that I love to listen to, and has a lot of different types of music. And another one that had maybe these are just bands that I've watched their biographies in like the last 3 years or something, but Queen. I mean, Queen is just like, man, I think about it every Sunday in my house. We just listened to albums, and we would just literally put on Queen and Elton John on vinyl and just listen to them nonstop until the needles fell off the record players, dude. And Queen has such a distinct sound and just so many different hits, and I absolutely love Queen. So that's a little bit. I guess you could say I like rock and roll.
Yeah, I think that was pretty obvious there. You ever see the Hip live?
I had, dude. Yeah, I did. I saw them up in Barrie at Mosport. I don't know if you ever went there back in the heyday. No. That was like the concert place. Then I saw them in my hometown, which was super cool. I saw them in Belleville, Ontario, of all places. So got to see them twice. Not as much as I would like, but I can say that I got to see Gord play, which is super cool. And just their stage presence, man, just phenomenal.
Yeah, they came up to Sudbury maybe about 9 years ago, so that was great to see them. Yeah, nice. I think it's the rite of passage for Canadians. You have to see the Hip.
Rest in peace, Gord.
Yeah, rest in peace, Gord, for sure. So now we'll get a good read on you here. What are your top 5 books?
Yeah, so this is a mix. I kind of have when I'm in full-time reading mode, which hasn't happened since the birth of my daughter. When I was reading, I would actually have 2 books going, 2 different genres going pretty much at all times. One would be, a self-improvement book or a history book, something nonfiction. And then the other book was fiction, so that I could kind of jump between the two and always be reading something and keep things interesting. So that's probably why you'll see my book list is a bit eclectic and all over the place. But it's, I love reading. What happens now when I go to read is my daughter makes a point to sit on my lap and rip the book out of my hands so that I lose my page and I cannot read the book. I have read Jared Diamond's Upheaval probably like 6 times without finishing it, because the same thing happens every single time I go to finish the book, and my daughter just rips it out of my hands, and I just say, just giving up. So yeah, literature, when I have the time, I love it. One that I read fairly recently was David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me. Phenomenal story, super motivating. It teaches you that no matter how bad things are going, how hard things are, it can always be worse, and that it's certainly worth pushing through what you're currently experiencing to, either for him, it was finishing a race, but, in the professional world, you got to grind through it. The pain isn't that bad. You can make it happen. And there's shit in the world that's going on that's way worse than what you're facing. And Goggins kind of sheds light on that. And his story is pretty phenomenal. I won't go into it, but you've, anybody that is kind of in a tough place or needing motivation, David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me is phenomenal. I put Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell But dude, man, anything that Malcolm Gladwell writes, also fellow Canadian, is absolutely phenomenal. The research that Gladwell puts into anything that he puts his fingerprints on is phenomenal. And in terms of like, I think about it from fantasy football, like the research that we do, it is inspiring to see what Gladwell puts into his work. The Outliers is probably his most famous book. I think from a business perspective, what really interests me, and I put it down, was The Tipping Point. Just what makes things go full scale? Like what was the tipping point that made Apple Apple? What made Microsoft Microsoft? And he kind of gets into the minutia and finite of why these brands were successful versus other brands that had the same stuff weren't. So Malcolm Gladwell, anything that he writes, man, I just absolutely love and always gravitate towards. And from more of like a philosophical self-improvement book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Oh, dude, this book literally changed my life. And it came to me at a pretty difficult time in my life, and it literally changed how I looked at the world. We are in no other moment than the one that we are in now. And that's true. We have no control over what's happened in the past, and we have no control over the future. All we control, Kyle, is what we have right now. And I learned that from Tolle's book. Anybody, again, that needs something. I think that it's a good book for anybody to read, but anybody that's like struggling with, let's say, mental health or things that are going on in their life, Eckhart Tolle kind of was a breath of fresh air for me and changed my life. So Eckhart Tolle and The Power of Now is a book that literally changed my life, dude. So to ease it off, another one book that was kind of foundational to me in terms of how I was raised and just kind of the look on the world. People kind of laugh at it because it's a book that we have to read in school. It's To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. And a lot of us had it in our, grade 10 English or whatever, and we're forced to read it. But just kind of the viewpoint of that, the look, how they examine race and the dynamics of that and the history in the U.S. just really interests me. And it's always been one that I continue to go back to. I think that there's a lot of, foundational kind of teachings in that book that we can learn a lot from today. I'm glad that they still teach it. Maybe it's more on the delivery of teaching it. Certainly the content isn't bad, but there's a lot of bad English teachers out there, isn't there? So
there's bad fantasy football players, right? But there's also some great ones too.
You're absolutely right. And that brings me to another piece of fiction, in East of Eden by John Steinbeck. John Steinbeck kind of, from a literary perspective, is he's on my Mount Rushmores of authors of all time. So that's a little bit of what I kind of, my Will Harris canon. There's, reading to me is one of my favorite pastimes when I'm not chasing my 3-year-old daughter around.
Life's always a moving target, isn't it? And we'll get to movies. So what are your top 5 favorite movies?
Yeah, dude. So I like to keep it light for the most part. There's also some super dark ones on here, but we'll start it off.
This isn't that light. The first one is.
The first one is I can, my sister and I could probably do this movie from start to finish and then do it backwards. It's Tommy Boy with Chris Farley. Chris Farley, to me, is one of the funniest people to ever exist. Rest in peace, Farley. Just went from us too soon. But Tommy Boy is just, it was his breakout film. Absolutely hilarious. I still get a kick out of watching it today. And I actually, my favorite comedy of all time. That's about looking at this list, it's tough. It would be tough for me to transition over to my next movie, but I just recently rewatched this. I think that's why it gets such a high spot on this list. Silence of the Lambs. Anthony Hopkins' performance in that movie, Jodie Foster, was just absolutely riveting. And I kind of circle back on this. I connected this with people that inspire me, people that are like driven by passion, that mean good. And I look at even Hannibal Lecter's character. He was driven by principle. dark, twisted, really fucked up. But he was driven by principle and, was doing good in his own mind. So very interesting character. I actually went and rewatched the entire series. Silence of the Lambs, definitely the best of that, but Red Dragon and I forget what the other one's called, but yeah, Silence of the Lambs, just an absolute classic. And then from my father's homeland, not my homeland, Braveheart. For anybody with Scottish roots, it's tough not to have Braveheart in your top 5. And I watched it when I was 10 years old. I'd been to Scotland once, and I think that it's tough to leave that one off. Being like a history major as well, just Scottish history is super tragic and pretty shitty, to be quite frank. And kind of William Wallace was the great hope of the Scottish people. So Braveheart is Scotland kind of in all of its glory. So Braveheart gets a nod from me. It's just a badass movie, man. Like, Mel Gibson kind of at the peak of his acting career, the Battle of Stirling, just absolutely. And this was in the day too of like real summer blockbusters, right, dude? Like, we would go to the theater and pay money to watch this stuff. Like, for us, like, I grew up in a small town, man. We would go and watch this stuff on a drive-in theater. Like, so that one really sticks out to me. And then, another war movie, Platoon. I mean, Platoon is just such a classic Vietnam War movie. The who's who of kind of like the 80s or 80s, early 90s in terms of actors in that one. One of my favorite movies of all time. Again, just incredibly dark.
Charlie Sheen at his finest, really.
I think so. I think it was all downhill after. I mean, he had Hot Shots, right? Or what? Hot Shots? Yeah. No, Hot Shots was like the Top Gun ripoff, and then Major League.
I wasn't even aware of that. That's a hot take, but anyway.
It was, you're right though. It was all downhill on roller skates for Sheener after that. But a classic
movie. Rolling down on a train, maybe.
Yeah, A Train from Outer Space, from Mars, right?
Poor Charlie. Did you spot it?
Poor Charlie. Yeah,
I was trying to transition to the next one.
Absolutely, and that brings me to the next one, Train Spotting. Again, not so much because it's based in Scotland. It's just it's absolutely classic. Ewan McGregor at his absolute finest. One of the best directed movies, and again, super dark, but some dark humor. I guess that might be a common theme throughout these movies outside of Tommy Boy, that there's a little bit of dark humor that goes on. So that is the top 5. Tiger Blood Problems. Yeah, Tiger Blood. I'm just seeing Sean chirp in there.
Yeah, thank you, Sean, for that. Tiger Blood Problems.
I'll tell you a funny story. Actually, at the height of Tiger Blood, when I was really into hockey, I actually got a Maple Leafs jersey with Tiger Blood across the back. Yeah, I can't believe that. Yeah. Can't make that stuff up, Kyle, man. Can't make it up.
No, you're yeah. I feel like Train Spotting, you're not supposed to be all that comfortable watching that movie.
No, I went to rewatch it the other night, and it's not on any streaming service, so I just gave up.
Couldn't spot it. Okay. Now this one you didn't fill out, so let's see if you have to improvise here. Top 5 game day foods.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about this. So pizza is like the 101, 102, 103. Like, dude, man, I'm a
3 toppings, right? 101, 102, 3. You always get 3 toppings.
I love pizza. I can't mess with that. Number 2 would be nachos, like all day. I absolutely love nachos. The only thing that I love more, of course, is pizza. And then number 3, I know it's not maybe a main course, but beef jerky is kind of a staple in this house. You're in Northern Ontario, man. You guys have some of the best jerky. Best jerky going. I mean, venison jerky is just absolutely awesome. For those of you that don't know, venison is deer. So jerky
dear to our hearts.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a staple in my house. I get mine directly from a farmer here, just outside of Toronto. So we always have that going. I'm also not a big wings guy. I'm not a big wings guy, but if I had to put it, maybe if it's there, I guess it would be number 5. We do everything at home, bread it all ourselves and fry it up. And then number 4, dude, man, you can't go wrong with a burger. Or like we do these mini sliders here that are pretty delicious. So we either change it up. We do some sliders, or like a meatball slider as well. So either we do Wagyu mini burgers or Wagyu meatball sliders. So that would be my top 5 in terms of game day food. But dude, it like just pizza. We get pizza from this Italian place up in Vaughan. We literally drive like 25 minutes to get this pizza. It's worth every single minute of that drive to be able to bring that home.
Yeah, because Toronto traffic, that's not fun to cross through that, for anyone who doesn't know.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, Sean's saying jalapeno poppers wrapped in bacon is pretty good. Stuff with some cream cheese.
Yeah, thanks for popping in there, Sean.
The one thing about COVID is that there is barely any traffic in Toronto. That is one of the very few silver linings of COVID. That's for sure. And of course, the Canadian fantasy football community uniting. There we go.
Positive. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we turned it around, folks. And yeah, we'll end with this of the last 5 of the high 5. Now, hopefully we end on a high note. Actually, not so much. It's the top 5 worst fantasy football rules or settings.
Yeah, for me, anything under 12 teams, I just can't handle. That to me is really, really tough. And then going with that, it would be no flex, then no IR, which we've already talked about. I'm not gonna beat on that anymore. And then I don't mind standard, but I was kind of raking trying to figure out what else I don't like. The other one that I don't like for Dynasty is that when the playoffs hit, that there's no trading. Doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, we should be able to trade. It's a long time until the off season kind of officially kicks off. So sometimes you're in this Dynasty dead zone where there's no waivers, there's nothing going on for like a month and a half. It just kind of kills the vibe. I think that you should just be able to open that up and be able to trade through the playoffs. And those would be my kind of anti-top 5. But hey, dude, like as long as we're playing fantasy football, shit can't be that bad, right? Like if you're in a standard 10-team league, good on you. Like I'm not going to look down on your league. Fucking, you're playing fantasy football. That's awesome. And if I had to, I would, yeah, of course I would play that because it's fantasy football, dude. It's what we love, and we'll of course do it, right?
Will, of course, dude. Well, Will, thank you for doing the show. Really appreciate you spending the time, letting people get to know you a bit better. And I know the Canadian brotherhood obviously growing in fantasy football, but also the connection, all the connections Viridian Global's making, including here with Going for Two, and really happy with that partnership. I ordered a shirt. I was hoping to have it in for this broadcast to show it off, but sure, by next episode you'll see that. So tune in for that, folks. But greatly appreciate everything, Will. So was there anything you wanted to plug? Let people know where to find and follow.
Hey, man, I'm just super thankful for you having me on the show. Really appreciate the chance to jam with you, and I really love what yourself and the crew at Going for Two is doing. I mean, Jeff is one of the people in the fantasy football industry that's doing it right. He builds, around really good people, really good content. So I'm excited to be partnered with y'all. Like I'm super, super stoked. Really like what you're doing at Going for Two. In terms of like where you can find me, It's Harris Time is kind of the central hub on Twitter where you can kind of find all the goodness. If you're in the market for, a kick-ass t-shirt, a kick-ass hat, you love fantasy football, check out Viridian Global. I mean, I looked at it the other day, dude. We literally have over 600 pieces of merchandise on our site. Like it's insane. We have 25 fantasy football brands, and some of the coolest designs on the internet. And I attribute that all to my business partner, Mark Mathick, who's just an incredible graphic designer, loves fantasy football, and loves loves what everybody's doing over at Going for Two. So yeah, give me a check out at It's Harris Time. Give the crew at True North FFB, give them a follow. Check out their website. We're doing some great content. Trav and Ty and the crew over there, we're working our asses off. We're going to be relaunching the site. Going to have a bunch of great content going through there. So that's it. And for anybody, I mean, we talked about it earlier. Anybody that's looking for insights or needs some help in like fantasy football and writing and business struggles, whatever, like my DMs are always open. I always say that. Some people take me up on it, but they're there. So feel free to reach out. And Kyle, man, you know what? We got to do this again. Sudbury is only 4 hours away, which in Canada, I mean, that's not that far for us Canadians, right? But I appreciate it, dude. And I've just had an absolute blast rocking out with you on Monday night. So thank you.
Yeah, I guess, well, of course, appreciate hanging out with you. I think, yeah, this is the first time we've spoken voice to voice, face to face, but I'm sure it definitely won't be the last. And yeah, I guess cognizant of that, because I guess 4 hours in certain states, you're actually crossing states. So yeah, we do have a big province. Take that. No. Yeah. So again, thank you everyone for joining. Love seeing the comments today. It's always great to interact with folks. Always great to join on. But just like at True North, all sorts of new shows joining. Obviously, you've had the True North Fantasy Pod going for a while as that flagship. The OGs, Trav and Ty. But the Jet Sweep show. You've got the Point After, Gold Jacket Pod, all these new podcasts that have kind of come up within the last few months around the same time as Viridian. And so it's similar to Going for Two, all these new shows as well. So glad to see success of both companies.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And come this, we're going to be producing content all this off season, and True North will have you covered every day of the week that Going for Two doesn't, but I'm sure that you guys will have in season, you guys will be going every single day. So
yeah, it seems like it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, True North, check us out. Lots of great stuff coming, and lots of really cool stuff going on right now.
Yeah, so of course follow us. Will's at It's Harris Time. I'm at Senra Says. Also follow everything Going for Two at Going for Two. Everything with the Going for Two live shows at Going for Two Live, and of course, might as well follow Jeff at Jeff Lambert 77.
And we have a kick-ass. We haven't talked about this yet. We have a kick-ass contest going on right now.
Right. Yes. How did I forget? This is not the moment we should have talked about it first.
We probably should have. Have talked about this all show, but we are partnered up to get the Going for Two live subscription count up to 1,000. I mean, it's going to get there regardless. But Jeff and Going for Two and Viridian Global wanted to celebrate that a bit for a kick-ass package for the 1,000th subscriber. I believe that it's everybody that enters from this point until then will be drawn for a great prize pack that includes a podcast and then a league shirts as well. There's a bunch of really great stuff that firstly, you should be checking out Going for Two, all the great content they're putting out, and you get a chance from now until do you know when it wraps up?
I'm actually just trying to find that right now on Twitter. Yeah, really should have been prepared here.
It's all good. Let's say that when we hit 1,000 subscribers, which should be sooner rather than later, they'll be drawn for a really kick-ass prize pack that Jeff has put together that is supported by us at Viridian Global. So we're super excited about that. And yeah, sign up. Not only do you get a chance to win, but you get to subscribe to some really kick-ass content from Going for Two.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, really excited to get Will on. I'm sorry, I just found it. So it doesn't seem like there's a time limit. I just found his tweet.
Okay.
Literally retweeting it right now, folks. So if you want to check out my Twitter right now, it's the newest thing. But yeah, it seems like whenever 1,000 subscribers on YouTube is hit, You get, I guess, a custom T-shirt, personal league podcast. Jeff values it all at $450. And yeah, those personal league podcasts, we actually have been starting that. I know Jeff had a little promotion. So that's available to anyone who wants that for their own league. I've recorded a couple of those already, actually. It's super fun. I think we give a lot of good insights. You get a good panel, usually 4 or 5 of us on at a time, talking, discussing about each of the teams in the league, what each team can do to improve themselves. And yeah, I think it's so far, all the reviews on it, people have been incredibly excited, really appreciative of what we've done. So of course, if you want a league podcast for yourself, again, reach out to Jeff, reach out to anyone at Going for Two, and we'll get to that. So yes, I think it's time to end. Will Harris, thank you very much. Again, Kyle Senra. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Canadian. We'll keep saying thank you for hours if we don't end it now. But yeah, so we're going to end it now. Be back in a couple weeks, folks. And again, until then, check out all the great Going for Two shows. Dynasty Gambit, that's the name. Thursday at 7 this week. So definitely check that out. The Fantasy Sports Talk, Jay and Freddie, Hamed as well. So yeah, until next time, I'm Kyle Senra, and this was Press Coverage.